Hey, it's Dave. Welcome back to my channel. That was a little bit of what Steve Kahn kind of does at the end of the song, The Glamour Profession by Steely Dan. The background track that I found didn't have the horns, so I had to fill it in a little bit more. But for the most part, it goes from D minor and then it modulates down to C sharp minor. And then there's some fun blue notes you can add in there, but I think Steve Kahn does a killer job on it. Anyways, I wanted to talk a little bit about today the amp that I'm using. It's down over here, right here, and I'll post a picture of it here. It's the Mustang 2 version 2 by Fender, and this is a modeling amp. I tend to like modeling amps. I think there's nothing wrong with it. There's a lot of snobbery that goes on in the guitar world as far as solid state tube amps and modeling amps. So this is a modeling amp, and I go in through USB, and what happens is I use a program called Fender Fuse. And what I can do is I can change the amps. I can look at it like I'm adjusting the amps, and I basically try to dial it in as much to the song that I'm playing to as possible, or if I'm playing just a solo piece, just how I would want the sound to sound. It's fairly very good. I'm recording in a program called OBS. I believe it's OBS 20.0.1, 64-bit for Windows. And what happens in OBS is the background tracks are coming in off the computer and the guitar signals coming in USB. So we have a little bit of latency. So depending on how the computer's running that day, if it's generally around, actually I'll tell you what I'm at right now. I'm running at 158 milliseconds of latency. So what happens is I drag the audio coming off this and I put up 158 milliseconds, and that puts the two of them in perfect time together. So it's a pretty simple setup. The reason why I'm saying is a lot of people ask me what I'm using, and I'm not really fancy in the technical aspect of computer recording and all that. I mean, I've worked in Pro Tools and studios, and I've had engineers and whatnot, but I don't have my own system where I'm basically just using this and into OBS. I made it as simple as possible. I'm here in the guest bedroom. Yeah, a lot of people always ask me, is this my bedroom? No, it is not. This is far too clean. Anyways, you can see there's a screen I have back there that's leaning up against that bed. That was going to be put behind me, but it screwed up the lighting too much. And you can see over here, right there on that end table, there is my Yeti mic from Blue. But anyway, so that's what I'm using. For a mic, I'm using a Pulson condenser USB mic. Everything goes in USB, so I got mic going in USB, I got guitar going in USB, and then I use a program called Voice Meter, which is a donate program. You download it and donate whatever you want. Well, they tell you what to donate, and it's like 10 or 25 bucks. I can't remember what it was, but whatever it was, and you download that, and then that acts as like your audio input. It's like a virtual audio input. So it can take in, and you can mix from Voice Meter, which is really cool. And that's basically what I'm using on here. The guitar I was using, that was my Rebel Relic, which I've talked about before in the past. And, there's like a lot of tomfoolery that goes on when people start talking about modeling amps, and people don't like them. And I've used, I remember I did a show years ago and I used my Line 6 Flex Tone 3. And so many compliments on the sound. I was actually plugged in direct through the back. It's unbelievable, because I did a gig not too long ago down in Falmouth. It was an outdoor gig, and they went through the back, and the guy came up afterwards and said to me my guitar tone was too bright, and that he would have much rather have mic'd the Line 6. And I said, well, why didn't you just EQ it? And he was just like, started giving me I've recorded with the Line 6 going direct in through the line out. So, I know it sounds great. I just didn't know what his issue was. So some people have a problem with it. The thing with me is like when it comes to solid state or tube amps, a Roland Jazz Chorus 120 sounds I mean, it sounds awesome. That clean sounds the best. Um, the thing that I don't like about solid state amps is when I play them, they lack like a certain amount of feel and whatnot that I like. Where that modeling amps have. So I actually like the modeling amps. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I think they sound good. When I go out and gig, I use a tube amp. I use a Hot Rod Deluxe. And, I have a crank 100-watt head, and I have a Mesa Dual Rectifier 100-watt head that's been modified in the effects circuit. And I got a Night Train, Vox Night Train, which I love to take out for small gigs. So for the most part, I love the sound of tube amps and some nice pedals. But, I mean, as you can hear, this thing sounds great. I've used it in almost all my videos. Some of the early videos, I think I mic'd it at first. I didn't know how to get around that latency, and it was a weird thing going. I mean, I figured it out, so now everything's coming through. So, like, I think from, like, maybe the 5th or 6th video on, everything's just going direct. There's nothing mic'd. That's basically the sound that I'm getting out of this thing. And, there's lots of good amps out there. It's funny, somebody was posting on Craigslist. They wanted to trade. They have a Mustang GT40, and they wanted to trade it for, like, something like mine. So I was like, well, it's newer and it's small. It could be awesome. I could put it on my desk. Maybe it would be easier to adjust and all that fun stuff. And then I look it up, and it's like the program is into your phone.
Oh, you. No, 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 no. Do not me, because I am you, and then we would just be ourselves.
Yeah, I just think it's absurd, like these companies that it's like, even TC Electronic, what's cool is you can use your phone and put it up to the pedal and go with a tone print.
Oh, you.
Just make the pedal work and fuck off. I'm so sick of this shit with your phone. It's like, oh, we're going to try to incorporate the phone. We're going to be in technology. Just make a fucking product that works, would you please? Christ. So anyways, I started looking at it, and you couldn't use Fender Fuse with the GT40. You have to use your phone. And I was like, fuck that. I'm done with that. That's not going to happen. Absolutely ridiculous. So, I like this amp. I've kept it. I bought it. I think I paid $125 for it used off my pedal steel player that I had in my country band. She bought it just for rehearsals and didn't need it. And it's been working out awesome. It's serendipitous that I got a hold of it and that I had it when I started doing this. At first, I have one of those Vox modeling amps. I think it's called like the AD30 VT or whatever it is. Maybe it's just the VT30. I forget what it's called. It's not important. There's so many products that are coming out, and I really feel, and I have a hard time with this. I have a hard time with paying a lot of money for stuff coming out of China. I just think it's crap. I used to deal, manage a company, and I'm not going to throw any companies under the bus in this particular statement, but there was a company that 50% of the amps coming out of China would not work out of the box. And that company actually had the balls to tell me that I need to send it to a repair shop, even though I took it out of the box myself, the store, plugged it in, and it didn't work. And I made them take it back. And that was their policy. I'm like, well, we don't want to carry your amps anymore. And they're like, we just changed our policy. We'll take them back. I'm like, yeah, you think? Anyways, it was absurd. It was absolutely absurd. But yeah, I think any of these amps, people can be snobbish about amps, and I like I said, I get a kick out of these guys on YouTube who are demoing these pedals or demoing amps, and they play it, and they all sound the same. There's actually a guy who basically plays like every heavy metal tube amp, and he plays it and then puts it in the mix. And I think there was like one with a tone, he could have EQ'd the tone a little bit. He even said, he goes, basically they all sound the same, and I believe they do. It's like, when I play, you hear me play. That's going to sound like me. I know some great players that in fact, one of my buddies used to go out with like a Line 6 pod with a Marshall cab, and all his sounds were out of the pod. He sounded great because he's a great player. It didn't matter, People spend a lot of time trying to chase a tone. Now, I have no problem with people chasing a tone because I chase tone myself, but I'm not crazy enough to think that this guy plays it and I'm going to sound like that guy. I know I'm going to sound like me, and I know the pedal's going to be way different. In fact, I know when I have lower output pickups in my Strats. They're not really high output. And I notice a lot of times if I buy a pedal after I see a guy play it, it has a lot less gain than they're using. And I still like that because I like a lower gain sound most of the time. And I'm not looking, I mean, there's plenty of gain on call, but it's just not as, I see they got the gain straight up and down at 12 o'clock, and I'm like, I'm not getting that. My sound is like way less. It's like at like 12 o'clock. It's more like at 3 o'clock is where I'm starting to get that sound, but not for 12. Like, I don't know what they're using, but those are things you should take into consideration when you're watching these videos is what guitars are they using, what are the pickups, and it's the great unknown. You don't know. Anyways, I did want to let people know what I was using for my setup, and very good.
You're right on target. You hit the nail right on the head with your comments, what you're saying today. You're right on the money, everything you said.